You think you're better than us, huh? That's what Officer Rick barked at the woman he just shoved face first against her car. Her groceries spilled onto the pavement. Her purse ripped. Her shirt was torn at the sleeve. Her child cried quietly in the back seat, too scared to move. She didn't fight. She didn't scream. She just looked at him, steady, like she knew something he didn't. And 2 weeks later, when Officer Rick walked into the precinct for morning briefing and saw that same woman wearing the commander's stars and flanked by internal affairs, it was already too late. But let me take you back to how it all began. Before we go further, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. We love seeing how far our stories travel. If this is your kind of story, raw, real, powerful, go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, and turn on notifications so you never miss what we drop next. Your support helps us keep telling the stories that others try to silence. Now, let's begin. The morning was cool but carried that heavy tension that only certain streets in South Carolina seem to hold. You know the kind where every passing siren makes you pause, and every wrong glance could end your day differently than it started. Jade was just trying to get through her Sunday grocery run. She wasn't in uniform today. No shiny badge, no commanding tone. Just a woman in gray sweats, no makeup, afro in a loose bun, with a sleepy toddler strapped in the car seat behind her. Her daughter Nyla clutched her bunny and hummed the alphabet. Jade had made it a ritual: milk, fruits, peanut butter, and a bouquet of sunflowers to brighten the kitchen. She always bought sunflowers, even when she didn't feel like smiling. But as she stepped out of the grocery store that morning, bags in both hands, keys between her teeth, she noticed a police SUV 2 rows down, lights off, engine running. She didn't think anything of it, until she noticed the stare. 2 white officers sat inside. One was watching her closely. She opened the door, buckled Nyla in first, and set the bags in the trunk. She turned to get in the driver's seat when, "Ma'am, step away from the vehicle." The command wasn't a request. Jade paused, slowly turned around. Officer Rick was already walking toward her, hand on his holster. His partner lagged behind, hesitant, younger. "What's the issue, officer?" Jade asked, calm but firm. Rick's eyes scanned her face like he didn't like what he saw. "This your car?" "Yes." "License." Jade reached into her side pocket, but he shouted immediately, "Do not move." She froze. "I said hands where I can see them." "Okay," she said gently, keeping eye contact, raising her palms. "My license is in my front pocket. I'll move slowly, and I said don't move." With a sudden lunge, he grabbed her by the wrist, spun her around, and shoved her against the vehicle. Nyla started crying in the back seat. "You're hurting me," Jade said quietly. "Please, my daughter is... got a mouth on you, huh?" Rick snapped, slamming her arm against the hood harder. "People like you think you're above the law. People like you." The phrase hit differently. Jade blinked through it. She'd heard it before, years ago, as a child, as a cadet, as a woman rising through ranks that weren't made for her. She could take the pain, but not the humiliation, not in front of her child. Rick pulled her arms back and prepared cuffs. That's when the younger officer stepped forward. "Rick, we don't have probable cause." She resisted, Rick barked. "We're detaining her." I didn't see resistance." Rick gave him a glare that could curdle milk. Jade said nothing, just lowered her eyes, let the shame wash over her like a wave she'd learned to breathe through. Eventually, a call came through dispatch. Apparently, there had been a mistaken identity, some vague match of a suspect and car model. No warrant, no official alert, just suspicion. Rick let her go. No apology, no eye contact. Just walked away like he hadn't just thrown a mother against her own car. Jade adjusted her shirt, soothed her daughter, and drove home, silent. Rickable, she didn't cry, she didn't call her husband, she didn't call her lawyer, she didn't even call the precinct. She waited, because something deeper was boiling under her still surface, and she knew what to do with it. Rickable, flashback, 17 years earlier. She was 23, only black woman in her academy class. She'd graduated second best, though rumor had it she was deliberately scored lower on the physical exam to keep her from beating the chief's nephew. She smiled anyway. The chief said, "You've got promise, kid, but know your place." She nodded. She always nodded, until she didn't. Present day, 3 days after the incident. Jade sat in her home office with the door locked. Nyla napped upstairs. The file sat open on her laptop screen. Officer Richard Rick Carlson, 12 civilian complaints, 4 excessive force allegations, 3 counseling sessions, 0 suspensions. She stared at the screen long enough for the lines to blur. Then, slowly, she wrote her internal memorandum, not as a civilian, not as a victim, but as the district training commander of the department. She signed it, attached the footage from the grocery store's parking lot, which she personally requested from security, and copied IA, the state commissioner, and the civilian oversight board. Then she sat back and waited. 2 weeks later, Officer Rick walked into the precinct like he always did, arrogant, loud, slightly late. He clapped one officer on the shoulder, flirted with the front desk clerk, and went straight to the squad room. "Morning briefing." "Yep," someone muttered. He stepped into the room and froze, because there she was. That same woman, only this time she wore her commander's blues, gold stars glinting on her shoulder, hair braided back with precision, eyes locked on him. Behind her stood 2 internal affairs officers, and behind them, a legal observer from the civilian board. Rick's throat dried. "Officer Carlson," she said calmly, "take a seat." Commander, I didn't realize." "You didn't ask," she interrupted. "That seems to be your habit." Murmurs rippled through the room. A few officers stole glances. Most kept their heads down. Rick tried to laugh. "So we're doing this now?" Back at home that night, Jade sat on the porch with Nyla curled on her lap, Bunny clutched in one hand. She whispered into her daughter's curls, "One day, baby girl, the world will try to push you into silence, but you don't have to fight like they do. Sometimes the quietest woman in the room is the one holding all the power." Nyla didn't understand, but she smiled anyway, because her mother's arms felt safe and warm and unshakable. Officer Rick sat with his back stiff, fists clenched in his lap, sweat forming under his collar. The squad room had never felt this quiet. Commander Jade's eyes didn't waver. Not once. She didn't yell. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her words sliced through the silence like a scalpel, not a hammer. "Gentlemen," she began, her gaze scanning the room, "we are public servants, not cowboys. We wear this badge to serve the people, not ourselves. When we forget that, people get hurt." Rick flinched. She paused. Let the weight of that silence do the talking. She knew silence made men like Rick nervous. She turned back to him. "Officer Carlson, would you like to explain why you used force without reasonable suspicion, probable cause, or de-escalation?" He shifted. "I believe the suspect matched a description given over dispatch." "That's interesting," she said smoothly, "because I reviewed the call log. The vehicle mentioned was a dark Ford Explorer. Mine is a light gray Honda Accord. License plates didn't match either, nor did the gender." A few snickers stirred in the back row. Quickly silenced by her glare, Rick leaned forward. "Commander, with respect, I had no way of knowing who you were at the time." "Exactly." That word landed with weight. "You didn't know who I was," she repeated, stepping closer. "Which means every woman who wasn't a commander would have gotten the same treatment. Or worse." Rick's mouth opened. "Don't," she said. "Don't embarrass yourself further." She turned to the IA officers. "Present him with the notice." They handed Rick a sealed envelope. "You are hereby suspended pending investigation, stripped of field duties, and required to attend disciplinary hearings under both state and departmental policy." Rick stood up sharply. "This is political. You're making an example of me." Jade's voice lowered. "No, you made an example of yourself. I'm just doing my job." He stormed out, but no one followed him. The room stayed still, like a page turned in a book everyone was reading together. She looked at the remaining officers. "Dismissed. Except you, Officer Tennyson." The younger officer, barely 26, sandy-haired and nervous, stood. "Yes, ma'am?" Not enough to stop it, but enough to be noticed. "Sit with me." He did. They spoke for 45 minutes, not about Rick, but about culture, power, silence, and how hard it is for good men to stand up when bad ones wear the same badge. "You still want to lead someday?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am, I do." "Then start now. Keep your eyes open and your spine strong. You don't need a title to do the right thing." Elsewhere that week, the footage leaked. Not from the department, but from the grocery store itself. The video, silent, grainy but undeniable, showed Officer Rick slamming Jade against her own car, her hands raised, her daughter wailing, and below the clip, the internet did what it always does. Another black woman brutalized. He assaulted a mother in front of her child. They only stopped when they realized who she was. The headlines ran wild. The mayor's office called her, twice. The second time, not to apologize, but to beg her to manage the PR. "Commander, we respect your work," the mayor's rep said. But we really need to control the narrative, especially since you're involved. Involved, she repeated. Yes, I mean you were the one. I was the one assaulted, she said, deadpan. In front of my child. Of course. Yes. But also you're a senior department figure and tensions are high. Then lower them. By firing him. There was a long pause. We'll review that internally. Good luck. She hung up. Ram Rit. Woodlaw. At home. It got worse. People found her address. Some praised her. Others threatened her. A package arrived with no return address. Inside it, a baby doll painted black. Burned and melted. Jade didn't flinch. She just took the box inside, filed a report, and added extra cameras to the perimeter. Her mother called. You don't need to do this anymore, baby. You've done enough. Let it go. Jade smiled gently through the phone. If I let it go, who teaches Nyla to hold her head up? Ram Bork growled. One night, 3 a.m., Nyla cried out in her sleep. Jade rushed in, heart racing, only to find the girl shaking under the covers. I saw the bad man again, Nyla whispered. Jade swallowed hard. It's okay, baby. Mommy's here. No, Nyla whimpered. He pushed you. And I couldn't help. Jade laid beside her, arms wrapped tight. You don't have to help me, Nyla, she said, voice thick with emotion. You just have to grow up and be the kind of person who never does what he did. Days later, the hearing came. Rick arrived with 2 lawyers. Jade arrived with none. Because she didn't need backup, she was the backup. The boardroom was filled with stiff collars, plastic water bottles, and the stench of procedural neutrality. Rick tried to spin the story. Fear, mistake, miscommunication, adrenaline. Then Jade played the footage. No sound, just truth. At the end, one of the board members asked, Commander Jade, had you not been who you are, how do you think this would have ended? She looked at them all. I wouldn't be sitting here, I'd be buried, or in court, or cleaning trauma off my child's memory for the next decade. Silence. Her voice cracked slightly, but she didn't break. I'm not here as a commander. I'm here as a black woman, a mother, a citizen, and I'm telling you, this was not a mistake. It was a pattern. He just happened to grab the wrong woman this time. The verdict. Termination. Rick lost his badge, his pension, his power. The department issued a public statement. Vague, careful, but clear enough to satisfy headlines. The mayor's office sent her flowers. She threw them away. Rickle-wise, weeks passed. Life returned to its quiet rhythms. The grocery run felt safer. Neighbors waved more. Co-workers stood taller around her. But something had shifted. And one day, she walked past the academy, her old stomping ground, and paused. Inside, a new batch of recruits stood at attention. Nervous, eager, diverse. She stepped in, quietly. The instructor saw her and whispered, You want to speak to them? She nodded. Jade walked up, stood in front of the class, looked into each of their young, uncertain eyes. Let me tell you a story, she began. And they listened. To the story of the woman they'd only seen in headlines. But today, she was real. And they never forgot her voice. 3 months had passed since Rick Carlson lost his badge. But power doesn't shift in a day. The department was quieter around Commander Jade. Yes, but not everyone clapped when she walked into the room. Some only waited for her to slip up. Some still believed Rick was just doing his job. Some hated that it was her that brought him down. They didn't say it, but Jade could feel it. She didn't need their applause. She needed their respect. And they were learning, slowly, painfully. Runchu, Tuesday, 6:15 a.m. She sat alone in the precinct conference room, flipping through the new recruit evaluations. Half of them would wash out. 1 or 2 might survive a decade. And maybe, just maybe, one would be better than them all. She sipped black coffee. No sugar. The bitterness kept her focused. Captain Myers knocked softly. Got a minute? Come in. He stepped in, bald, tired, fidgeting with a rolled-up file. You heard about the protest next week? Jade nodded. The university kids? Yeah, it's gonna be loud. They're calling it March for Mothers, wanting to raise awareness about police use of force, especially on black women. Jade folded her arms. Good. Myers raised an eyebrow. That your official stance? It's my human stance. He sighed. Well, they asked if you would attend. She blinked. Me? You've become a symbol. That's dangerous, she said quietly. Symbols are easier to burn than people. That night, she called her sister. Tamika was louder, more fire than steel. Lived in Detroit, ran a non-profit, didn't care for cops, even her own blood. I knew this day would come. Tamika said on speaker while frying plantains. You gon' get dragged into the center of all this? I don't want to be anyone's hero. You already are, Tamika replied. They saw that footage. That wasn't just a woman. That was every woman. Every time one of us gets humiliated in public, every time we hold it together for the sake of our babies. You didn't ask for it, but you became it. Jade went quiet. I'm scared, Mika, she whispered. Tamika didn't laugh, didn't tease. I know, sis, but do it anyway. The following Saturday, the university quad overflowed. People in black shirts, women with toddlers on their hips, grandmothers clutching signs, law students, nurses, poets. It wasn't angry, it was honest, and that's always scarier to power. Jade stood behind the makeshift podium. No teleprompter, no script, just her, just a microphone. I never planned to stand in front of you today, she began, her voice steady. I wanted to wear my uniform, serve my district, go home to my daughter. That's it. But one man's aggression became a window into an entire system's silence. He wasn't just cruel, he was protected, over and over again. And so was I, protected by rank, by title, by chance. But that's not how it should be. A woman shouldn't have to be commander to be treated with dignity. A mother shouldn't need stars on her shoulder to survive a traffic stop. And a child shouldn't grow up thinking crying is the only thing she can do when her mother gets hurt. We cannot fix a broken mirror by painting the cracks. We must start again. So I am not here today as your commander. I am here as Jade, a daughter, a mother, a sister, and I am here to tell you, we see you, we hear you, and if no one else will stand beside you, I will. She stepped back. The crowd rose, not with screams, but with silence. Thousands standing still, powerfully, respectfully, because sometimes the loudest applause is the one you don't hear. Back at the department, her speech went viral. Half the city praised her. The other half called her a traitor. The union president sent a thinly veiled warning. Careful, Commander, don't forget who signs your checks. She didn't reply, but she remembered. Weeks later, a letter arrived at her desk. Plain envelope. No return address. Inside, a handwritten note on lined notebook paper. I watched what they did to you. I'm not proud to be in uniform anymore. I want to do better. I want to learn. Do you mentor? Officer S. Delgado, Patrol, Zone 8. She stared at the letter, then turned it over. No contact info, just the name, and that meant he trusted her to find him. Last Sunday, Jade showed up unannounced at Zone 8 precinct. Walked right into roll call. Officer Delgado here, the sergeant stammered. Yes ma'am. Want me to bring him? No, I'll wait. Delgado emerged 5 minutes later, clearly shocked. His boots weren't tied properly. His badge was crooked. He was nervous. You wrote me, she said, arms folded. Yes ma'am. You mean it? Yes ma'am. I don't want to be like them. Then meet me Wednesdays, after your shift. My office. He blinked. Just me? Maybe, she said, then walked out. By Thursday, 5 more officers had written. By the next month, 12. She didn't announce it, didn't post it online. But every Wednesday evening, her office lights stayed on late, and officers sat across from her. Not to be disciplined, but to be shaped. One night, Officer Tennyson from that day in the parking lot stayed behind after everyone else left. Commander, why do you still do this? She looked at him. Because she'd asked herself that very question 2 days earlier while scrubbing Nyla's crayon drawings off her white walls. Because, she said, I'd rather build wolves who protect than keep burying lambs. Then came the storm. One of her Wednesday mentees, Officer Anna Reyes, stopped a high-ranking judge's son in a DUI, booked him, followed procedure to the letter. The judge was furious, called Jade. You're training radicals. Jade replied calmly. I'm training officers to uphold the law. I'll have your badge, he hissed. You'll need to earn it, she said, and hung up. By morning, news articles were planted. Headlines twisted her name. Commander behind anti-cop culture in police reform wave. Jade Weston's mentorship program breeds departmental rebellion. A hidden agenda behind the smile? She was advised to step down. She refused. Let them come, she told Tamika on the phone. I'm not going anywhere. And she didn't. But then the backlash got personal. Her daughter's school received threats. Her home was followed by unmarked cars. One night, Nyla asked, Mommy, why are people mad at you for being nice? Jade tucked her in and cried in the hallway, not because she was afraid, but because the fire in her belly refused to go out. They tried to push her down. She got taller. The internal affairs audit came quietly. They combed through her Wednesday meetings, interviewed mentees, dug into past complaints, looked for anything to hang her with. They found nothing. But they did find something else. They found a culture shift. Complaints in her precinct dropped by 22% in 3 months. Use of force incidents down by 35%. Community trust ratings up. Morale higher than ever. Because what they didn't understand was that she wasn't training rebels. She was training reformers, quietly, steadily, powerfully. And one day, the governor called. She was wary, but he surprised her. "You've built something rare," he said. "We want to replicate it statewide." She took a long breath. "I'll help," she said, "but I'm not giving you my blueprint." "Why not?" "Because it's not mine. It belongs to the people I trained." And that's how it began. A whisper in one room became a conversation in many. Then a curriculum. Then a movement. And through it all, Jade stayed the same. Sharp, calm, watching, working. She wasn't chasing a legacy. She was cleaning a house, one brick at a time. The breaking point didn't come with a riot or a scandal. It came with a vote. A policy proposal was introduced by a group of city officials, quietly slipped into the monthly legislative package. On paper it sounded innocent. Reform, Realignment, and Public Resource Optimization Act. But Jade read between the lines. It was a slow dismantling of everything she'd built. It removed funding from community-led patrol programs, reassigned oversight from civilian review boards back to internal command, and worst of all, it placed her mentorship program under disciplinary review, claiming it was causing division within ranks. "They're coming for your whole legacy," Tamika warned during a late-night call. Jade knew. They weren't attacking her with fists anymore. They were using policy, and paper cuts could bleed the longest. "Rith played you a rough, with a right from to adored. And, well, we knew I ones I pliable of them was wall." Just a woman in a navy dress with her daughter, sitting quietly beside her, drawing flowers on a notepad. They thought she would fight like a soldier. She came like a mother. When her name was called for public comment, she stood. Not rushed, not angry, calm, composed. "I won't argue today. I've already done that." She placed a folder on the podium. Inside were letters from community members, rookies, veterans, single mothers, retired officers, some anonymous, some signed with trembling pen. "What I built wasn't a rebellion. It was a response to a wound this city keeps pretending it doesn't have." She held up a single page. It was Nyla's drawing, a stick-figure cop holding hands with a stick-figure little girl. Above them, in big crooked letters, "My mom is kind and strong. She makes bad guys think again." Jade's voice wavered, but she didn't cry. "If you erase what we've started, who teaches her that kindness still matters? Who teaches her that the law is something worth believing in again?" The room fell still. Even the air paused, and she sat down, not knowing if it would make a difference. Ron bly wad. The next morning, the vote passed. Barely. The reforms she'd built were weakened, reassigned, muted. They hadn't destroyed them, but they'd clipped the wings. Jade was offered a promotion, deputy commissioner. It was meant to shut her up. She declined. Instead, she walked away, not in defeat, but in discipline. Sometimes, she told the local paper, the most powerful thing you can do is choose peace over position. 6 months later, the very officers she mentored continued the work. Quietly, they taught new cadets her values. They pushed for accountability with strategy, not rage. They passed on her lessons in parking lots, during night shifts, through whispered corrections on body cams. And slowly, the culture changed. One day, Officer Tennyson, now a precinct captain, gave a talk to graduating recruits. He ended with this: "There was a woman who taught us something none of our textbooks did. She said, 'You don't need a badge to have integrity. You need a spine. And when your voice shakes, it usually means you're saying something that matters.'" Epilogue. Jade Weston moved to a small house near the coast. She planted sunflowers, volunteered at a local literacy program, and every once in a while, she'd receive a letter from an officer she once trained. One of them simply said, "Ma'am, today I spoke up. My hands were shaking, but I did it, because I remembered your silence in that squad room, how it made more noise than any shout I've ever heard. Thank you for making me brave." She folded that letter and placed it in a wooden box marked "Proof that Change Happened." Moral lesson: true leadership isn't about how loud you can speak, it's about how deeply you can listen. how quietly you can stand, and how courage done right doesn't make you famous, it makes others free. So what would you have done in Jade's shoes? Let us know in the comments. Where are you watching from? We love seeing how far these stories travel. If this story moved you, share it. If it inspired you, like and subscribe. And if it made you think, then maybe, just maybe, we're on the right path. Thank you for watching. Until next time.